Hi folks, I'm the inventor of the BioBlaster ozone machine, and today we're going to go over the very basics of just exactly how is ozone made. The first type of ozone that we're going to talk about is the most primitive kind, and it's the kind that was invented by a man named Nikola Tesla. Tesla is world famous, and he's also infamous. One of the things that you might be aware of that's pure Tesla technology is the lowly spark plug. You see folks, a spark plug is two pieces of metal, the one that goes through